Alright, well, what is happening? So this is another video of how to kind of get yourself into doing day one raids and how to transition yourself into a raider in Destiny 2. Um, Biggest thing I've been getting from a lot of friends is kind of how do I get into raiding or how do I get into day one raiding, because on my end, I've been doing this for just about 2.5 years doing day ones, but I've been raiding for much longer in Destiny. Um, for a lot of people, it seems like it's very intimidating because when you say day one, there's a lot of things that go into it. But in reality, it's only going to be intimidating if you're not really prepared to go in and go do it. Well, we can probably kick this video off with understanding what a raid is. So in Destiny 2, there's a thing called raids, similar to a game like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14, where you go into an encounter or into an instance for 6 players, and then you just clear areas or layers within the raid in order to get to the final boss. You kill the final boss, and you get loot along the way. The cool thing about Destiny 2 is that the raids are fairly short. You can clear them within probably like 1 to 2 hours outside of day one modifiers. Learning the raids are not overly complex. There's a lot of videos and guides that are out there that you can look at that'll teach you how to do each of the raids. But I think the biggest thing is understanding that there's a difference between doing the raid during day one, and there's a difference when you're doing the raid when it's outside of day one modifiers, because it's very, very different between both periods. Yeah, when you go in, you just click the raid, and you just kind of launch the encounter, and you go into it. Usually when new raids come out, they'll be set to like certain instances. The biggest thing that you'll know with season 22, which is the season that we're in right now, is Crota's End, which most likely will appear inside of Savathun's Throne World, or it'll appear in the Legends tab. So make sure that you kind of understand the theme of the expansion and understand where it's going to fall into the expansion as well. There's going to be some Discord sound effects going off in the background. I do apologize for that. I am in the middle of watching somebody else's stream at the same time. Yeah. So the biggest thing with at least getting into raids is understanding kind of the atmosphere around it. You're going to be raiding with 6 players, so you're going to want to make sure that you're not wasting each other's time. Because at the end of the day, each player is going to perform differently, and understanding both your own limits versus the people that you play with is going to be a big thing that's going to change how it goes. There's kind of 2 parts with going into raids for Destiny, or at least doing any form of PvE content, whether it's raids, grandmasters, or master mode dungeons. The first part is understanding the class that you're going to play and the subclass that you're going to bring. And the other thing is understanding what weapons, what exotics, and what part of your armor you're going to bring or change. Currently, right now in Destiny 2, loadouts are locked and disabled. But what you can do is you can set up loadouts that can let you hot swap on the fly. Now, if you're an old school gamer like the most of us, you can just kind of switch your gear. You kind of know what you're going to switch out and switch into. With this expansion, they've kind of simplified a lot of the mods for both your weapons and for your gear. So it's no longer a huge amount of complexity. If you're going to throw on like a loader mod to increase your reload speed, you don't want to bring melee kickstart, you want to bring like font of focus or something that's entirely different, you can. So it's not very hard to build craft in that sense. But that's kind of the first part, and the second part is setting proper expectations for yourself and ensuring that you're both mentally and physically prepared to go into the raid. Yeah, I think I forgot to mention is when you do go into a raid, make sure that you have an okay build. You don't need something that's going to be like Jimmy Forehead level where it's like ultra min max. But you also don't want to be the Timmy Two Thumbs of the group that doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't have the right weapons, and you're just bringing in double primary. You're going to get kicked out of your raid groups pretty fucking quickly when you do that. Okay, so when it comes to being prepared for day one, in Destiny 2, there is no late level restriction outside of being Pinnacle Cap for Season 22. But in Final Shape, there's going to be a lot of changes to how the late level system works. So historically, players would need to go get their late level as high as they can so they have a chance of not getting destroyed or memed on during a raid. But nowadays, it's as long as you're like the hard cap, you should be fine. and right now the hard cap right now is 1790. So it's more than likely you're gonna need to be at least 1780 or 1790 to go walk into the new raid. And then you should be pretty much fine. As long as you're at that light level, you're fine. There's really no need to be any higher light level because you're completely capped out at whatever light level they set it to. So if you're max light level, which is like 1810 right now for Pinnacle, you're gonna get no benefits from it, unfortunately. But you will get benefits once it's not in contest modifiers, because you'll do more damage, you'll kill things quicker, and it's just a lot easier over time. So the first thing you need to understand is what your group is going to be going in with. If you're planning to go in with just 6 hunters and just hoping that you're going to just clear the raid in day 1, I'm going to have to keep it honest with you, Chief. It's not going to happen. Generally speaking, you're going to want to make sure that you have at least doing air quotes right now, a meta to what you're going to bring. Now, subclass kind of matters depending on the class you're playing as, but generally speaking, you'll most likely see 2 hunters, 2 warlocks, and 2 titans in a raid. Sometimes you might see 2 titans, 2 warlocks, and 1 hunter in a raid. You might only just see 1 titan, 3 warlocks, and 3 hunters. Like, it can kind of vary, but you want to make sure you have at least, at minimum, 1 of each class. Best to have 2 of each. You might want to bring like an extra warlock or an extra titan if you need some more utility or just a little bit more damage supers from them, because titans can bring their arc super and they can just thunder crash and just do a lot of damage. Warlocks can bring strand as of recently, which does a lot of damage. Well of Radiance will be really useful. Nova Bomb, Chaos Reach, just it kind of depends what you want to bring, right? But you want to make sure that you're kind of evened out, and you want to make sure you have at least 1 backup character in case you need to swap or somebody else needs to swap, either from a DPS or from a utility. It really just depends on what you're going to bring. Currently in the season that we're in right now with Well of Radiance, warlocks are almost demanded to have in raids, especially for day 1s. You'll want at least 1 warlock with Well of Radiance. And what Well of Radiance does is you basically stab your sword in the ground. It gives you both Restoration and Radiant as a buff. Radiant is a damage buff. It's been so long, I just don't remember exactly how much it gives you, but it's a pretty hefty amount. And Restoration, it just heals you while you're in the aura of the sword. And that's pretty much why you want to bring a warlock, because Well of Radiance is very overpowered. It does last for quite a long time, so like it typically would last almost a full damage phase, and if you have 2 warlocks, you can just have 1 place theirs. Once it's really close to running out, then you just get the other warlock to drop theirs as well. Bring a titan with like Ward of Dawn, bubble, additional damage bonus. It doesn't stack with well, unfortunately, but it's always good to have a titan with that, because void overshields are 1, very overpowered, and 2, if the well runs out, you can just get the titan to pop their bubble and then just walk in, walk out, and you're good to go. Having a hunter with void is also nice, because weaken debuffs are really useful. You used to be able to just use divinity, which gave you a 30% debuff, but now it's only 15%, so the only real workaround that is just to bring something that is a bit better than divinity, because the 15% debuff doesn't really equate to the damage loss that the person using the trace rifle is going to experience. It's still useful nonetheless, depending on the raid that you're doing, because if you have a fast moving boss, and like for example like Rulk in Vow of the Disciple, you're gonna want to bring a divinity. It makes it super easy to hit them, extends the hitbox, especially for people who have like accessibility issues or a controller that can't aim. Very helpful for them. Now the next part is to kind of go over kind of weapon choices, and I'll bring up my dim here. You want to make sure that you kind of walk in with a bit of an array of items or weapons that you need for day 1. Not necessarily want, but you'll need. If you look at my Titan here, what I'm personally bringing, and what most day 1 raiders are going to typically bring, is Outbreak Perfected in the kinetic slot. Ye Old Outbreak is probably one of the best exotics to bring, especially for damage, because this thing can ramp up to a lot of damage, especially if 6 people are using it. The nanite damage can really get you that day 1 clear when you fully run out of rocket and special ammo. So it's very beneficial to bring that. Some theory around bringing Touch of Malice because of the changes that they've done where it doesn't fully kill you. It only takes you to absolute. It got a 20% damage buff. Don't know if it's going to be really that overpowered. It was never really that broken in Destiny 1. But who knows? This might be a meta weapon. But if you have both of them, just have them on hand and just kind of try it out and see which one's good. Maybe you could think about bringing Revision 0. In a very specific scenario, Revision 0 could out DPS Outbreak if you use it in perfect conditions. But Outbreak is just very easy to use, and you're just not going to have a hard time using it. So totally recommend bringing that. The Outbreak is really broken, so something like Wither Horde, you can pop it on the boss, do a lot of damage to the boss. It's just damage over time. Pop it on the ground, clears ads like Wither Hordes, and it's just a monster. It's a really broken grenade launcher. The only nerf it really got recently was just the damage over time tick that it does. It went from like 8 seconds to like 4.5 or something. So it's still very strong. It's still really good to have, especially with the Catalyst, because the Catalyst gives it the auto reload feature. So it's very good to have that. Having Arbalest will become really good, especially when you need to use something that's a bit more ranged, and with just how Arbalest functions, it's a very, very strong weapon to bring in a day one. Fits in the kinetic slot if you need linear fusion. If you're running double linear fusion, just switch to Arbalest when you can no longer use the other one. There was a bit of a slight nerf to how Arbalest worked for its total damage, but I mean, it's still very beneficial to bring. Probably bring some kinetic weapons that are like primary, so like an SMG. Usually SMGs are primarily used in most raid groups. I don't think you're really going to see anything outside of that. You might see like hand cannons be brought in because hand cannons got a really big buff, and specific hand cannons in the game right now are very, very strong. So you might see some of that. But you'll most likely see a lot of SMGs being used in the game right now. Osteostriga, very overpowered on a Warlock, because you can just combine that with the Necrotic Grips exotic, and you're just going to be clearing out ads like it's going out of style. And that's the biggest thing about Osteostriga, is that it completely demolishes ads, and it's very, very good for ad control. Having like a fusion rifle in your kinetic slot would be kind of useful, like a Riptide or like a Deliverance. Can still do some damage. Having it with Chill Clip would be really good. A Vorpal weapon could also be fine as well if you have it. Vorpal gives a 20% damage buff to special weapons, and if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to primary weapons, it gives you a 25% buff as well. So bringing that would be very handy for special weapons. Bringing a Scout Rifle might be useful too. There was only one instance where Scout Rifles are kind of used, and that was in King's Fall. I know my raid group did use some Scout Rifles. Some people got really good rolls of Duma Calcuses during when we first went in for 24 or for the day one. But it might be useful to bring a Scout. You never know, you might have some long range encounters and you might want to bring that. Especially with Crota's End, you might not need to bring a Scout Rifle, but it might be handy just in case. SMGs are going to be completely broken in just Crota's End. Like I'm going to be completely honest with that. Outside of that, just kind of general weapons you might be able to bring. You might be able to bring Wicked, the Scout Rifle Wicked might be useful to bring along with you. Agar Scepter might be good for ad control because it's a very strong trace rifle for stasis, and if you're using the stasis subclass, it just kind of goes hand in hand with it. It's kind of really about it. Being a sniper rifle, that might be good. So like adaptive frames or rapid fires are really strong right now. Aggressives might be worthwhile bringing like a succession or something like that, but it kind of just depends on the encounter you're doing. If snipers work, snipers are not really in a good spot right now, but might be useful to bring. I would rather bring a sniper than a fusion rifle, but fusion rifles are very limited on that type of range that you can hit with, so you have to be very up close with fusion rifles, whereas sniper rifles you can hit in all ranges. More crazy when you're trying to hit something that's like 5 meters in front of you, but it's, you know, sniper rifles still have a bit of an array when it comes to that. When it comes to energy weapons, it just kind of solely depends on what you kind of want to bring. Classic Callus Mini Tool, Icolos SMG with Volt Shot, Callous Tool with an Incandescent and Unrelenting on a solar subclass, you're never gonna die with this weapon. I promise you, you will never die with this weapon on any of the classes that you play as Hunter, Titan, or Warlock. You will not die with Callous Tool. It just, you kill things so damn quickly, and it's gonna keep you topped up on health as well. Like close with Volt Shot's really good too. Clears ads pretty quickly, does a lot of damage as well. Like it's kind of surprising. You can bring something like, like Funnel Web, or you can bring where's the Iron Banner SMG? There's a specific Iron Banner SMG that you can bring that has destabilizing rounds on it. I still can't see it on here. I'm just completely blind right now. But it's got destabilizing rounds, so it's really good because destabilizing rounds, when you kill an enemy, it turns other enemies volatile, and you're just gonna get chain void reactions, especially using a void subclass. Like just chain void reactions. It's very strong. Again, a sniper rifle would be good. Something with Vorpal Weapon or Focus Fury will be very, very strong to bring that with you. What I forgot to also mention when it came to the kinetic subclasses, bringing a grenade launcher that has blinding grenades and spike grenades, if you can get one with both, but if you only have one with disorienting grenades, which they used to be called blinding grenades, but now they're called disorienting grenades, bringing these would be really helpful. So like Lingering Dread's a really, really good one, because blinding grenades are really strong. They CC and blind enemies, and it's a pretty long blind as well. Like it's pretty challenging for things to fight against you when they can't even fight back, right? For Barons, a very strong waveframe. It's got chain reaction, so you're gonna be just melting ads and just causing chain reaction of just arc energy just blasting everywhere, and you're just gonna completely destroy a line of Thrall if you're running into them. Something that has disorienting grenades also would be really helpful as well. I don't see one, at least visually speaking, on my thing here, but that'll become very handy. Divinity, you might want to consider being Divinity. I don't think you're going to need one, especially with Crota's End, because there's no point in the raid where you're actually going to be damaging a boss. Like Crota, you will damage Crota, but you're doing it with the Sword Bearer swords. You're not really like damaging it with a weapon. So you might want to bring something that's not Divinity. I mean, Divinity might be helpful, but I don't think it's going to be really useful, not in this new raid. Bringing some strong weapons. Like Cloud Trick's really got a huge buff, more in its magazine reserves, and it just does a lot of damage with this chain reaction for the Thundercloud. So Cloud Strike is basically just Thunderlord, but a sniper version of it, which it got a pretty hefty buff. But yeah, that's kind of what I would probably bring. Like a trace rifle, like Asher's Dejection might be really good as well. Anything that's gonna just help you clear ads, so like Hollow Denial, Ashaya's, there's a Season of the Seraph one as well that has Volt Shot, which is this guy here, Path of Least Resistance, really strong to bring one of those as well. I believe there's another solar one from, I think it's called Retraced Path, that's from the 30th anniversary. Might also be a good one to bring as well if you have that. Running double special isn't uncommon during day ones, because trace rifles can functionally be just your primary weapon, but it's kind of on depending on the type of build that you run for it. But you could also bring one of those. Bringing the glaive would be probably pretty smart as well. I'd probably recommend like something like Excalibur or something that's got like close to melee, where you're gonna do a lot more melee damage. Especially with Titan's new Strand War Banner thing, where it does more melee damage, may become very helpful for one of those. For heavy weapons, it kind of just depends on what type of heavy weapon that you want to bring. Well, kind of depends, kind of doesn't depend. It just depends on what weapons and what items you have available towards your inventory and what you can go get right now. Because you do have a bit of time right now before the new rate drops, you can figure out what you want to go grab. So if you want to grab Commemoration, craft it, you might be able to go do one of those now. You might get lucky on some of the clears that you get. You might get just 5 of them for red borders, who knows. Bring in an LMG. Adaptives are really good. High impacts are really good as well. If you're Hunter, you're going to want to bring Retrofit with Gerfalcons, because they just go hand in hand with each other. You can also use Commemoration too, but Retrofit's just a lot better because it's got Target Lock and Fourth Dance the Charm. So you're getting be getting a lot of damage. It's gonna be a lot of burst damage coming out, especially with the volatile. It's gonna be popping, weaken debuff. Like it's just really strong all around. Commemoration is just a really strong all-rounder. Everybody loves it. It's got really good stability on it, so like it doesn't like kind of go all over the place when you're shooting it. Apex Predator, which is the Last Wish rocket launcher, highly recommend getting this because this is the first rocket launcher right now that has bait and switch, meaning that it gets a 35% damage buff. And the only rockets that really it pretty much contends with is the explosive light ones, because explosive light gives you 25% additional damage, like not per stack, but you get up to 5 stacks, and each of the shots just does 25% damage on each of them, which is really, really freaking good. But with bait and switch, it's a lot more consistent. The linear fusion, that's pretty much going to be the strongest linear fusion, and will always be meta, and will shit on every other linear fusion. Before Taipan got its big nerf to how Vice Stinger worked, is Cataclysmic, which you can get this from the Vowed Disciple raid. 35% damage with 4 times the charm. Very, very strong linear fusion. I brought this to every single day one that I've done so far. It's done me a lot of justice, and it does a lot of damage. Like that 35% really, really makes it or breaks it. And with getting Orbs of Power, giving you solar damage buff, like it's very easy to get a lot of damage buffs to make this even more stronger than it already is. Having some of Galahorn, especially if you're using rockets, gives Wolfpack rounds to the rockets. So before, the meta was you want to bring somebody that has Chill Clip, because Chill Clip would freeze the target and shatter, and does a lot of damage for shatter damage. But they've done a huge change. Don't remember exactly what the change was, because when I saw that they made the change to it, I just did not care to bring a Chill Clip rocket launcher. But you want to bring someone with Galahorn, and then people with other types of rocket launcher. So like 4 people with Apex Predator, 5 people with Apex Predator. Two Tails, also a really good rocket launcher as well. Doesn't benefit from Galahorn's Wolfpack rounds, but with the catalyst for Two-Tailed Fox, it's so freaking strong. It does a lot of damage on its own, so that might be something you want to consider. Hothead, I believe this rocket launcher is still available as of Season 22, so you can go get one that has Demolitionist Explosive Light. You can also get one that has Autoloading Clown Cartridge. Autoloading Clown Cartridge used to be meta for Warlocks for one particular reason, and it was for Starfire Protocol, because of how Fusionates function with Starfire Protocol. If you have a well that's down, you can shoot the rocket, throw a fusion, shoot the rocket, and then throw it, and it completely refreshes your fusion grenades. Especially if you have a Galahorn, like you're constantly just gonna be refreshing, because the more damage you do, the more it'll refresh. So if you have Wither Horde plus a rocket, like you pretty much pop Wither Horde, pop rocket, and you're doing tons of damage in it that way. One other weapon, actually, I completely forgot, might be useful to bring, would be Izanagi's Burden. I don't see it on my list here. I am completely blind. Maybe I might have dismantled it. Yeah, I know I can just use the search function on the top, but I'm too lazy. But Izanagi's Burden will be really good too, because you would used to do Izanagi Burden with auto loading. Now Reconstruction, which Reconstruction, in my opinion, is a lot better because it gives 2 in the mag instead of 1 for rockets. Izanagi, switch to rocket, shoot, put your rocket away, switch back to Izanagi, do your reload, shoot the Izanagi's Burden, shot again, reload, switch to your rocket, and just kind of go back and forth between them. Thunderlord might be good. Thunderlord was very strong when it came to the last raid, so hey, who knows how strong it's going to be for this current raid. Did get a bit of a change, but it's still very powerful. Tool to bring. Tractor Cannon gives a 35% weaken debuff, so very, very strong to bring as well. That's kind of about it. When it comes to the other weapons, you just kind of have to figure out what other weapons, or what other armor and what other weapons you want to bring. Those are kind of like my Titan's loadout right here. It's pretty much what I'm going to be walking in with on day one. You might be wondering, oh, why do I have Navigator on? The fact that you can just shoot your allies with it and then give them a free Woven Mail shield is kind of nice. Kind of helps out with not getting sniper shot to the head and just falling over instantly, right? But yeah, just most weapons are pretty viable, but there's some pretty meta picks, which I've mentioned. Something like Sleeper Simulant might be really strong to bring as well. Grand Overture might be something that you can consider to bring. I don't know, Lament might be something that's also worth considering as well. You might also want to consider maybe bringing Parasite, but I don't think Parasite's going to be that useful. I've never found it to be useful because it's only useful for one shot, and then it just becomes very, very useless after that. I'm personally walking in with Warlock and Titan as my second, so if I need to switch to Titan, I do have stuff that I can bring for Titan. Armor kind of just depends what you're going to bring. I'm going to be walking in with Sunbracers, Narcotic Grips. I'll bring Starfires as well. I'll bring Phoenix Protocol in case we need more wells up, so I can bring that as well. I got Lunefactions. Lunefactions is always the de facto, very, very strong. I got Swarmers as well if I'm using Strand. I get more Threadlings. They do unraveling damage, so when you shoot your Warlock super, you'll spawn Threadlings, and it's really strong. It synergizes it pretty well. Nezerax might be good too. You can also bring that, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Like, just understand, like, day one, this is the stuff that you would walk in day one, getting your loadout all good to go. Make sure that's at least at hard cap. If you can get a pinnacle cap, even better, but at least make it the hard cap. I think I mentioned earlier in the video too, it's, weapons, loadout, that's one portion, and that's always going to be one half of how to do day ones. The other portion is just mentally preparing yourself. So a couple of things I would probably suggest and recommend are things like make sure that you're well rested. You're going to be going for at least 12 to 24 hours. Maybe not in one day, but like you're going to go for 12 hours for between 2 days. So it's a lot of time that you're spending and sitting down. Make sure that you're hydrated, you're well fed. Make sure you're not eating a lot of junk food. But things like whole foods are going to be really useful. Things that are going to keep you hydrated and kind of going, giving you some energy. Have a decent internet connection. You'll never believe how many people that just don't have good internet connections and just completely ruin a raid experience like that. Like, I haven't experienced that myself, but we've had some people where they just ran into internet connections where they're just getting weaseled and heater just in the middle of a raid, and it freaking sucks when that happens. Set your expectations of the group. You guys want to go for the clear and make sure that everybody is in for the clear. If one person isn't, you gotta make sure that you're aligned on that. Know that you're going to struggle a lot. You're going to die a lot in the raids. It's not as simple as just walking in, clearing, and walking out. Not going to really do that within an hour, especially not day one conditions. So make sure that you understand that you will struggle a lot. And try to not be overly frustrated with a lot of the struggles too. Trying to kind of keep yourself calm and collective as much as you can. Analyze situations. If you see mistakes that are happening, being able to understand how it was made, what was made, what happened as well become very helpful. Especially because if you're not watching your screen, you're not going to be able to notice certain visual cues that you might see. That a mechanic is a visual cue. You might see like a flavor text that pops up on the bottom left. You might get some debuff or buff. So it could be multiple different things. The other thing too is like recording your POV or streaming your POV. Having a video on demand or a VOD is very helpful, especially if you're breaking for like 5 minutes. So somebody needs to go use the bathroom or get some water. Flip back the VOD, go watch it a little bit, and kind of just see what happened during just the last bit of the run that you just did. It becomes very helpful if you're just like, damn, I don't remember what I did for this one mechanic, and then you're just like, oh shit, now I figured out what I need to do. Paint and Photoshop have something that's going to be like easily accessible to draw on. It'll become very handy when you need to draw something, especially if you need to visualize it for yourself or for other people. Makes it very easy, especially if you're doing like diagrams where it's just like you have like play callouts and you want to make sure they have a consistent play callout for your group. It's like L1, R1, L2, R2, L3, R3. Having something that's going to be consistent is going to be helpful. Honestly, the biggest thing is just having fun for day ones, because you're only going to experience this once or twice out of each expansion. Or at least right now you're going to experience it twice, but we're going to be going back to one time per expansion. So that's kind of the biggest thing, is have fun while you do it. Yeah, and just kind of take it easy, be ready for it, and don't be overly frustrated. You don't clear it. You do have potentially 2 days of doing it, so you don't clear it on first day, but you're on the last boss, then go walk in the second day, and I promise you'll probably clear it. That's pretty much what happened with my group when it came to Voodoo Nightmares. We were just kind of slamming our heads. We're just like, you know what, we're just gonna call it. We'll walk in tomorrow. We'll see how it kind of goes. Within like 2 hours, everything clicked. It was just a matter of just getting it just a little bit more consistent, and then when we had that one run, we hit it, we fucking cleared it, and we were done. So that's pretty much about it. making sure that you set your subclasses correctly and ahead of time, especially your fragments, your abilities, and your aspects. Make sure that they're all ready to go on the characters that you're gonna bring. Very handy, very helpful. Make sure your armor as much as possible to be prepared ahead of time if you have to switch out certain things. If loadouts are available by then, hey, that's even better. But if not, then just make sure that you just kind of know what you need to switch out quickly, not to waste too much time for other people's hard-earned precious time. That's about it.